Good evening and welcome to the January 16th meeting of the Dover-Sherborn Regional School Committee. My name is Judy Miller and I am calling this meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. I'm going to read about why we can hold this meeting remotely. On March 29th, 2023, Governor Healy signed into law a bill which extends the temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to March 31st, 2025. Specifically, this further extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at the meeting location, and to provide adequate alternative access to remote meetings, which we have done via our website. I'm going to remind everyone, blast from the past, that when we vote, we have to say our names and then how we are voting once you are called on, and everything is a roll call vote. Next, we have community comments. Is there anyone here for community comments? I don't see anyone. And I don't see anyone on this who is not either school committee or a student rep or CAM. So we will move on to our first order of, yeah.
Judy, you do have one person joining, Sarah.
Oh, okay. Sarah. Is Sarah, let's wait. Hi, Sarah.
Hi there. Sorry for being tardy. Sarah Kadena Kinney from the Warrant Committee.
Sarah, nice to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
We were just doing community comments, but I assume you have no community comments. Is that a fair assumption?
None here. I'm here as your liaison. So,
well, I'm just trying to be, inclusive. All right, good. So I can dispense with the community comments preamble and we can go to our agenda. And the first item on the agenda, Esther, you have to excuse me because my brain doesn't work real well and I forget your last name. Mersuli?
Yeah.
All right. Esther Mersuli is our student council rep. Take it away and give us your report, please.
Okay, so we have not done a lot of things this past month or so because all we did was town meetings in December. And I'm pretty sure we're gonna meet after mid-years. So about the town meetings, I only went to my freshman one because I had other classes to attend. But for the freshmen, they had very creative ideas to suggest to our school, like a third lunch, but we voted on that and everyone disagreed. Or esports and stuff like those. And they had problems with Wi-Fi a lot. Almost every grade had. And also improving our school's food quality. I heard that the sophomores did a really good job as a team collectively. And I don't know when to meet. I don't know if we're meeting with Mr. Smith this month. I still need to talk to Mr. Picky about that. But I'll update you guys.
Okay, that's terrific. Thank you so much. I love the idea of the town meetings, and democracy sometimes is about disagreeing and then finding common ground. So thank you so much for your report, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month. Anyone have any questions for Esther or comments? All right, hearing none. Esther, thank you. I think you can go and study for your exams now. Take care.
I might just mute myself and hear you talk.
That would be wonderful. All right, so now we're going to skip down to the sports medicine policy so that Cam can also go and spend time with whomever this evening and get done with this quickly. I want to preface this by saying that I thought your policy was really well written, and I write for a living, and it was really lovely. But why don't you go ahead and do your presentation?
Sure. So For those of you who I've not met, which is probably a majority here, just to introduce myself, my name is Cam Siciliano. I was hired on as the athletic trainer as well as the assistant to the athletic department back in August was my official start. So we'll go with that. So I have been at the school since August. Kind of hit the ground running, obviously, because athletics started up basically my first week there. In addition to that, I know that last year was the first year that the athletic training position was brought in-house. So there were some changes with that. I think there was obviously quite a bit in terms of positional changes around my role now being dual in the athletic department. And one thing that I realized fairly quickly, I've been in the athletic training field for close to 20 years now. I've worked at a couple of different high schools, the Division I level, the Division III level in college, as well as an orthopedic office. So I've been around a lot of different environments. And one thing that I realized fairly quickly was that we were missing a couple of key pieces in terms of not only documentation, but also really coverage for the athletic training role. One of the things that I put in place almost immediately was standing orders, which the way athletic trainers operate is we are duly licensed medical professionals. We're nationally certified, but we have to work under a MD, a DO. There's one or two more in Massachusetts, and very similar to like a physician assistant, where the doctor can sign off on what are called standing orders. So we worked with Boston Children's Sports Medicine to get those squared away. They were more than likely done by, I believe ATI held the contract 2 years ago. So last year was a little bit of a question mark. I'm not exactly sure at this point, but anyway, in August, got that squared away. That dovetailed into, I'm a very big, I like things documented and I like things set out so that there are really no questions. And that dovetailed into starting to create this sports medicine policy manual. I really realized that I think it would be beneficial, and in talking with Emily Sullivan as well as John Smith, I think it would be beneficial to implement something like this so that there is a groundwork for really everything that is that I do, in addition to how we are treating our student athletes, how certain policies affect them, how they affect the parents, and really just giving us a nice framework for if there is a question, we have a nice written policy to fall back on if there's ever an issue. So that was really kind of the evolution of this manual. So really the big thing was just kind of seeing what it is that we needed and building it out from there. Oh, I think you're muted, Judy.
Thank you, Cam. Does anyone have questions or comments? Kate? Kate?
Yep, thank you. I'm unmuting. Thank you, Cam. And I had the opportunity to hear this maybe 2 months ago when on the athletic advisory, and I appreciate you coming to us tonight. I agree with Judy. I think this is so well done. And I'm a little bit embarrassed to say, or I want to ask rather, have we had a similar policy at DS in the past? We have. Okay.
Yes. And this is probably my personality. It's a little bit more robust than it used to be.
Yeah.
But there was a written document. It mostly covered the athletic trainer's role and kind of emergency procedures. So we were definitely covered. The school was definitely covered previously. I think with the changing nature of obviously laws and MIAA bylaws and things like that, as well as the changing landscape of high school athletics, I wanted to expand on what it was that we had.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate the depth of it, and even including the detail of the, you know, cold practices and warm practices and all that kind of, I feel like it was so detailed. I'm grateful. So thank you.
I have to give credit to my old institution, Bryant University. I ripped quite a bit from there and reworded it and reworked it for the high school level. So the framework was there for me, but I've pulled quite a few different pieces in.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, Kim, first of all, Kim, robust is great here at DS. And thank you for laughing, Beth. And I was going to actually ask where you got the what template you used, and I think that that's a great source. A university is a great source for a template, so that's terrific.
Yeah, it was, and that is one that I actually, while I was at Bryant, I spent close to 10 years there. A lot of that is something that I developed in conjunction with the woman who's now the head athletic trainer there. We put a lot of work into that policy manual,
and it shows. It absolutely shows. Any other discussion, questions, comments? Seeing none, let me just tell you the way this works is we do this first read tonight, and then we come back at our next meeting and we do what's called a second read, and then we vote to adopt the policies. So that will happen, I assume, at our February meeting, and someone will let you know once it's approved. Yes?
Yep.
Wonderful.
Very good.
Kim, thank you so much for coming tonight. I just want to say what an honor it is to have you working on our staff as a full-time Dover-Sherborn employee. You've been a great resource for our kids. I know Emily is thrilled that she has a partner now to work with in all that she does. And just the level of professionalism and expertise you've brought to our district, as evidenced in just the manual you created, is much appreciated. So thank you for joining our team.
I appreciate that, Beth, and I appreciate it to the committee for bringing me in tonight, allowing me to speak on this.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe.
You too.
You too. Okay, moving on to the superintendent's comments. Beth.
Thank you. I'm going to be brief tonight. Denny and I don't have much to say. We'll have a much more detailed report at our January 30th joint meeting, when we'll have all three committees together. So stay tuned for that. In the short term, I just want to say congratulations to the cast and crew of Mary Poppins for putting on a phenomenal show. I feel like every show every year gets better and better and better, and I just don't know how the next one's going to be better, and yet the students rise to the occasion. So congratulations, and thank you for bringing some joy and happiness to our community. And second is just a plug for the State of the District event that Denny and I will be hosting next Wednesday night at 6:30. It'll be in the middle school library with our new screen and technology. For those who can't make it Wednesday night at 6:30, we will record it and share it out afterwards, both through our email channels on our website, and we're hoping to put it out on DSC TV so that all of our taxpayers and community members can watch it via the cable news. Other than that, I'm happy to take questions or comments, or if there's anything else you want us to add to the January 30th agenda, Denny and I would be happy to address it at that point too.
Questions, comments? No? Okay. Wow, this is wonderful. Moving on to Dawn, the financial reports, and then the update on the FY25 budget.
Great. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for having me here tonight. It's a pleasure. So you have your standard monthly warrant report. It's short and sweet with the holiday break and our recent meeting. So again, any questions on those, feel free to stop by central office. On your monthly report, so I have a few things that are in bold that are new information. So on the revenue side, you'll see in bold that at this point in the school year, I sort of looked at our activity fees because we're sort of at that January timeframe where the school is up and running, and did make an adjustment to what we are projecting to receive for the high school activity fees. That's a number that we still haven't been able to quite pinpoint where we're going to land, and I think we're still. It won't be unlikely that we'll still have some students paying the fee because some of them are just will join clubs late or the drama programs. So I did leave a small amount estimated to be received, but you'll see where I have a little bit of a negative variance in that particular line item. On the positive side, we've actually met our revenue goal for high school parking. So we've received a little bit more. If you recall, when we do exceed what's in the general fund, it gets booked directly to the building fund. And that way it actually keeps it for use in future years, whereas this is only for the current year. So you will see that that number won't change the rest of the year, that we have met the budget amount of the 52,500, which represent about 175 paid parkers for the school year. And we've also met and exceeded actually the middle school activity fee. I think they have a pretty robust program going on right now, lots of new activities. So it's nice to sort of see that participation at that level. And the fact that, so we have 168 students who have paid the activity fee and hopefully are taking advantage of what runs right after school. And then they're able to take the late bus home a little after 4. So that is new information on the revenue side. On the salary side, I just wanted to bring to your attention, you'll see a negative variance in our substitute line item. And that's sort of an early period in the year to already be seeing that, but we have actually had quite a few of leave of absences. And so we have long-term subs in. And when we bring a long-term sub in, we actually encumber their days that they are scheduled to be with us. So it's not a pay as you go. It's if they're here for obviously our long-term subs or any position that's more than 20 days, that payroll is encumbered. And so that's why you're seeing sort of that negative variance right now. And in most situations, we're not seeing the offsets because these aren't long-term. These are obviously staff on leave who are actually still using their sick time. So sometimes we get to see the savings in the one line, and to counteract this pretty much right now as it stands is a full negative variance for us. On the expenditure side, we really don't have any new information to share, and everything is status quo in all those categories. So that is actually good news. So other than that, those are the new pieces of information for your December 31st revenue and expenditure reports. Any questions? Yeah.
Questions, discussion? All right, then Dawn, keep going.
Yeah, so this is pretty easy tonight with the budget. It's still early on. We just presented the budget to you in December, so I don't have any new information. What I wanted to provide for you too is just anticipation of what we'll be bringing forward at your February 6th meeting. At that point, we should have the state's initial fiscal year 25 budget. And with that, for the region comes a lot of information that works into our budget. You'll get the preliminary cherry sheets for our Chapter 70 revenue, our Chapter 71 revenue, and then the minimum local contributions, which is a big component of our assessment calculation. Where they're anticipating that we will get it well before January 24th, which is the deadline for the governor to file the first budget. There's anticipation that once she does her state of the state, that the next day the budget will be released. So we'll be grabbing those numbers and working them into your version 2.0. In addition, we have had a West Suburban Health Group board meeting. What I don't have is approved rates, but what I do know is it's not going to be 12%. It's going to be probably 10% or less. And so what they floated out to us were sort of some scenarios and projections from all the providers, and nothing exceeded 10%. So depending on how the board plays into sort of what we really want as premiums and what we could potentially subsidize a little bit with fund balance is still yet to be seen. They haven't actually set the board meeting yet, so I don't know if I'm going to have those for February 6th, but we would definitely hopefully have something before we meet with Dover-Warren and Sherborn Advisory on the 14th. So in what's baked in that calculation, when we do get the approved rates, is I do go and take the most current participation. So sometimes that can fluctuate too, because every month we'll have employees coming on, employees going off. And so I'll use whatever the most accurate participation census data is when we calculate with the new rates. So I don't want to roll out that we're going to save this much money, because I know that participation has changed as well, and that plays into this. But I think the good news is that healthcare will not be 12%. I did not want to have to come back and have a higher number like we did last year. So I'm glad we rolled out the 12 and happy that we're reporting something less than that. At the point 2 in the February 6th version 2.0, we will be able to reflect any retirement savings because we'll be past the February 1st. And we do know we have several at the region. So we're hoping that that will definitely be a help to the budget as we try to bring down the costs for the two towns. In addition, I think it's important that you can look at your current revenue statement, knowing that our philosophy for using E&D is to look at revenues that we have exceeded the budget, where had we known that we were going to get, say, so much Chapter 71 and so much interest income, they would have offset this year's assessments for the town. We will take those numbers, and that will be E&D that we apply for fiscal year 25. So I think with all the information that hopefully we're sort of prepping you for tonight, is that we're going to hopefully see a nice reduction in the budget that we'll be presenting to the two finance committees on February 14th. Because hopefully we'll only have things that are going to come down and not things that are going to go up. So just to sort of set the stage for what you'll be seeing, hopefully in version 2.0 on February 6th. Also, in the memo, I just sort of rolled out sort of like the timeline for the whole budget season all the way to the annual town meetings, just so you could put those on your calendar and know that we're really not completely done with this from a point of like being able to say the budget's approved until May 6th, when Dover has their meeting and approves their town budget.
Okay. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you for reminding us of those dates. That's helpful, at least to me. Questions, discussion, comments?
Again, as you spend time even with your first budget prior to February, if you have any questions, just send them to Judy and we can make sure we address them at the February meeting. When we do version 2.0, we'll go through everything again here, at central office, just to see where we are. And hopefully that will continue to support sort of the additions that are already in your version 1.0. So it might be worth your while just to refresh your memory on what things we did add that are sort of asked for the towns, so that we are sort of prepared when we meet with the two groups on February 14th to make sure you guys have discussed that and feel comfortable with what we're asking for new. I think that the good thing is that we're going to hopefully have some budget reductions that will help some of the things that we're asking for be a little easier to ask for when it's not a complete dollar for dollar add to the budget.
Terrific. Thank you, Dawn. So shall we move on then to the space audit report? Beth?
Thank you. I'm actually going to pass this over to Dawn because she spent most of the time with the architects. But just a reminder, this was at your request last year for us to look at the spaces at the middle school, Linquist Commons, and the high school, not only for actual space and being able to provide physical space to all of our new programming and all of our classes, but also in terms of sustainability and safe spaces. So here we are with a report a year later. I know you've had an opportunity to look at the drawings and the proposals. I think it's super exciting on a number of levels, what we can do with both buildings. And so Dawn can provide some details, and then we look forward to working with our building administrators on next steps to make some of these spaces come to fruition.
Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of background about how sort of the work behind the scenes with the architect work is that there were architects, but then there was also an educational consultant who spent a lot of time looking at master schedule, class sizes, and understanding how we use our buildings. And so you'll see some data that they provided in sort of the report background that shows you the level that they went down. I mean, they really spent time talking to the schedulers in each of the buildings, and we had to clarify a few things. As you know, we sort of run school, Dover-Sherborn High School, particularly in a way in that we have concurrent classes running together, where you could have a CP and an honors. That totally confused them. So putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. But I will have to say, when we had the meeting, and it's in the report, but when we had the meeting with the two principals of high school and middle school and the team from DRA, they were so complimentary about how many high schools they've looked at nationwide and how impressed they were with the offerings that we do and what we provide students when we're such a small school, and gave us huge kudos for that. And they were telling me that offline, but then hearing sort of the educational consultant give a little bit more about how much he does this and how, the variety of schools that he has reviewed, it actually just hit home more, what an outstanding job Dover-Sherborn does with the electives that we provide and the opportunities that we provide for students. So there was someone in the background doing all this number crunching and looking at sort of the map, and they looked at both the schedule of the classrooms and our master schedule. And then there was an architect who spent time with me walking through all the buildings and taking photographs and asking how we use certain spaces. So then the two of them worked together to come up with some recommendations on how we can use our spaces to probably fit what we're doing. Because, obviously these buildings are sort of built in the old-fashioned way for high schools, and sort of try to bring us to where, 21st century learning is and sort of the type of spaces. So they had some great recommendations about some of our existing spaces and how we could carve out spaces in those or reconfigure spaces to gain us more educational venues to do more of like the breakout, the small groups, presentation type rooms. Their report said we don't need more just generic classrooms, but we need spaces to accommodate the type of offerings we are providing our students. In both schools, I will say the biggest space where they felt like we had huge potential were the libraries. If you think about where we sit, we would be sitting there tonight if we weren't on Zoom, and we've added that great technology. That is one space you'll see they've carved out to put in like glass walls and sort of section it off so that it is a more defined educational space. And same with the library at the high school. On the space right now, if you think about the high school library on the opposite side, on the nurse side of the that entrance, but if you come in, there's like not cubicles, but tables set up with computers. So that is the space they've outlined also to do a similar glassed in enclosure sort of breakout or classroom, and that we were thinking of actually using it as a classroom. And then also in the back corner, They did say we have a lot of books, like a lot of books. And that we don't have to take away the books, but in the other opposite back corner would be a great place to put like 3 breakout rooms. And so they wouldn't be closed in, but it would be like little study carrels, bigger than that you could go and utilize. So the libraries were prime areas that they thought was just, space that we should definitely do. They're recommending sort of a glass enclosure. One is because it's more of what they're seeing at the collegiate level as to sort of the type of spaces that our students will see when they move on from high school. It also gives a visual sort of viewpoint that you're not closing off the space and making it more confined, but it could flow. And we're even looking at potentially in the middle school library to have one of those walls sort of collapsible, like movable, so that you could open the space if you want it. There were a lot of other little recommendations. If you walk through the report, they did it by school. As things as simple as putting in dividing walls up in the music room up in the middle school, the band room in the high school. And it was interesting because they in Linguist, they actually had the original plans, and some of like the band room actually used to be 2 rooms, they said, if you looked at the plan. So it's interesting to see how we sort of have changed things probably even before our time. And if you think about the back 2 computer labs at the high school, that used to be 3 rooms because that used to be where the preschool was back in the day when it was housed at the high school. So, and that's another space they think is primed to sort of build out a small breakout conference room, but it also makes a more logical entrance space into the program that we have that runs along the backside, because there'd almost be like a little hallway that we would segment off. And you're not losing space that you couldn't still do the classrooms that the academic settings for those 2 labs. So there's a lot out there. I think our next step, so we did meet with the building principals. They had time to ask questions. They've had time to digest the report. Our next step is for the architects to actually give us cost estimates for the various projects that they have proposed, so that we get a feel of like the cost and what we can hopefully get approval for ESSER money and get some of these in place for fiscal year 25. They're not major construction projects, which I think gives us the ability to be able to put some of these in place and be ready for fall of 25.
Great, thank you, Dawn. I have some questions, but does anyone else have questions?
It's not really a question, but more of a comment.
Who is this?
Me, Esther Masuli. Sorry.
Our student.
Yeah, the student.
Okay, Esther, it's really only for the, but it's fine. That's what I was gonna say. You guys gotta wait. Where it's, you know what? Just go ahead, ask your question.
I just remembered that the students think this is more of, but I just remembered that the students thought that the lockers were very unnecessary because no one uses it and they clog up the hallways.
Yep.
So they think we should get rid of them. That's all.
Dawn, didn't we talk about that at one point? I have a vague recollection of it.
Yeah, it's not popping out in my head, but I won't say that we haven't talked about that. So yeah, I mean, that is definitely something when I did the walkthrough with the middle school administrative staff, that the musical lockers in the upstairs where kids used to put their youth instruments, we were actually thinking about pulling those out. So that would be something we'd look at. You just want to make sure if you pull them out, you're never going to use them again. And I know we don't use them now, so we just have to see what we would gain with the financial cost of actually pulling them out. What would we gain for that? So, but Esther, that's very helpful to hear sort of from the students. So I'll put that down.
Thank you, Esther. So, I noticed in there there was a comment, they had looked at the divider in Mudge and they said it doesn't work. Um, and they're gonna, and there was something about, are we gonna fix it? And my only question, I guess, is, I spent a lot of time in Mudge, and I remember once seeing that thing closed. Is that something we're gonna do? Is it costly? I mean, if it's cheap, then it's not a problem, but
Yeah, it's not costly. We actually looked at it a lot during the COVID situation, but at the same time, we're like, I don't know if we want to close people off in that space. So we did have our electrician. The motor just needs to be replaced. One of the and we can definitely work around this and maybe even use like half of the space is now that we've built the tech
Yeah.
booth back there.
Yep.
That's got a little bit of it makes it a little more awkward to close the wall. But that is definitely a space, and I think John Smith was interested in looking because they've got opportunity. Say when Mr. Bork brings in his speakers for his AP Gov class, that could make for a nice presentation space and not be dwarfed by the larger, 500 seat Mudge. And so that could make a more a venue appropriate for a class or two to have a speaker. So that definitely is something that we would look to do. And when we looked at the wall before getting it to move, it really was more just a mechanical issue than a major construction type issue repair. So that will be definitely one of the things that we'll look at doing.
yeah, we closed it once for a play where we knew the audience was going to be smaller to make it a more sort of intimate space.
Mm-hmm.
But the other question I have, by the way, I love the idea of the space behind the stairwell at the back of the middle school, the hall with the office. You know what I mean? That space, I think, was marked as a space that could be used for something. And I just found it so interesting because there are these like dead spaces that could be sort of,
Yeah, the big dead space that I think they recognized, and that was just through their walkthrough. Nothing that I had said like, oh, we've been thinking about this, is in the choral room upstairs.
Oh yeah.
If you think about where the risers are and the amount of space on the other side, and the fact that there's actually a door that you can get in down the way, that is when they definitely think that we should put a permanent, a wall up. And that could be a great classroom space, and it's not taking away from the choral at all. I mean, that really is dead space. So that when they were, they felt pretty like they're like, oh my God, this is just like here that needs to be turned into a more useful space.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And how are you going to triage these projects? Is John and Ann gonna really be the
Yep.
one?
So they're supposed to sort of pick their high priorities, and then we obviously need to take those along with the cost estimates and see like what we can fund. So I'd ask them each to like think of their top three where they think they could get the most bang for the buck for this coming fall. Because in our heads, we've already built some of these classrooms and have already started moving classrooms around. So we definitely want to see it happen. But leaving that to them to say what's going to make your life a little easier and where, because I think some of the things that we think is great, they don't really see the same way, but we're not in the building day in, day out with seeing how operations are. So we're definitely listening to what they have, but I think they both feel strongly about the space in the library. And maybe at the end of the day, those two are the only ones that are going to be able to afford quickly with the funds we have. I just don't have a good feel of what the cost is going to be to do. So we don't want to overpromise, but I think both of those would be spaces that we would put, and they both felt the same way, that those would sort of be top priority items. And then other pieces we can chip away at, the music room upstairs in the middle school. During COVID, we also thought about putting a dividing wall in there, but we couldn't quite figure out how it was going to work. The architects have a way that they think it would work. That's two spaces right there that gives you an extra classroom that I think that we could actually do that just under our operating budget, similar to what we did when we did the one downstairs. So there are certain ones that we don't need the architects to sort of, give us a cost estimate. And if that's something that the middle school is interested in doing, I can have our wall company come out, we can figure it out. Maybe we'll roll it right out in the summer when we have, the new budget and the fund. So it's sort of a combination of things. But if anything, I think it's made both of our building administrative teams just sort of think about space differently, and even finding ways that they may change existing space that's not even really part of this, but just rethinking how you use certain spaces. Like John Smith's been talking a lot about a maker space, and if we do this domino effect of rooms, then he's like, oh my God, that would be a great maker space. But that's not really part of this. We just need to make it a maker space. So I think it's exciting and sort of reinvigorating to sort of have someone from the outside come and give you some ideas of how you can use the existing space to sort of to yield more productivity from it.
Excellent, thank you. Other comments?
Judy, if I just may add, please, that I think, again, this ties right in with the fifth budget of our strategic plan. And as you know, 3 of our teachers, our high school teachers, are working on developing an interdisciplinary course that we're hoping will roll into the Academic Standards Committee next year and get their approval for a year from then. And through the process of developing that course, our teachers and John have been visiting other schools, experiential learning schools up in Casco Bay. They've gone to a Ted Sizer school. They've gone to the New England Innovation Academy. And what they've done is taken a lot of pictures and brought back a lot of enthusiasm and energy for what classrooms and spaces could look like. And so I think they've reinvigorated the idea of also not only creating new spaces and transforming large spaces, but doing more work in the classrooms to make them more student-centered. So I know that both John and Ann are hoping to use some of their furniture funds that are built into the operating budget to start to transform some more classrooms little by little. And Don has been, as we all know, super creative in finding some funds that we could kind of finish up here and there to add to those classroom renovation projects. So lots of good news, both in large and small spaces.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so should we move on then to the interior security camera?
I think Maggie has her hand up. Maggie.
Oh, Maggie, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. I just wanted to say thank you specifically about the depth and the specificity in this report. I really appreciate it. I think that it provides like some real, I always wonder if like when you hire consultants, if it's like worth it. But I think that this particular report had so much good detail and so many good ideas and like, just things that I hadn't thought of, the points that you brought up, a couple others. And just like, I think about how right before we went into the pandemic, how we were having a lot of conversations about more creative furniture arrangements, more sort of what you were talking about, best student-centered things. And then, we really got thrown a loop in like the next year. It was like, oh, we need to be in desks and they need to be in rows and they need to be. And I really, really appreciate the impetus of this report opening those conversations back up, because the temptation is like, well, we have these desks and they're in rows and we'll just keep them that way. So, and then also the report that came out, I think, in the news saying that there was no scientific basis for any of that. So should we have to look at this another time? We won't worry about that the solution is the desks. So anyway, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciated reading it and sort of the work that's coming. Thanks.
Thanks, Maggie. So the next item is, it says interior security camera proposal, but this isn't a proposal that we need vote on because I believe the funds are already in the budget and this is more informational and keeping us up to date on everything that's going on. Would you say that, Beth, or do you want to say it a different way?
Nope. Yep, that's perfectly accurate. Thank you, Judy. So as you know, last year, we installed additional exterior cameras around the regional campus. And at that time, you all put together a policy around cameras that left the door open to look at interior cameras as well. So as we think about the security audit that we went through in 2018 and all the work that was done, last year, again, we were at the point of installing additional external cameras. We're now at the point of thinking that internal cameras would be helpful as well to record incidents as they happen, to be able to review them after the fact, to hopefully deter students from making bad choices and creating further incidents. So we have our proposal. Both Dawn and Anthony Vertaco, our Director of Technology, have been working with Verkada. We're proposing that we install 16 cameras inside the middle school and the high school in locations that were identified both by Anthony, the company, and obviously the principals and assistant principals as being high traffic areas or areas where they think a little bit of extra supervision might be helpful. And then in addition to the 16 cameras, we have 4 vape detectors that we're proposing we install at the high school. And they will be linked into the cameras. So should the detectors detect vape or some sort of smoke or substance in the bathrooms, they automatically turn on the local cameras to detect for the next 2 minutes or whatever who's going in and out of there. And they send messages to the administrators on their phones to make them aware that something happening in this bathroom or in this space. So as you see in the memo, it's roughly $40,000. The estimate was not attached as Dawn and Anthony are working on getting a more detailed estimate that will help Dawn figure out, which part of the installation, what part of the equipment, what part of the licensing she can put in different line items. So we're happy to provide that to you at a later date, but we're just looking for your blessing to move forward with kind of a larger project that's already funded. We think is important to the safety, both physically and social emotionally of our students and staff, but wanted to just run it by you because it wasn't in the budget that clearly we rolled out a year ago.
Thanks, Beth. I had a question about what you just said with regard to the bathrooms. I assume that camera monitors who goes in and out, but not what's happening inside the bathrooms.
Right. So the vape detectors inside the bathroom, it would alert the cameras and a local administrator that there's something happening in the bathroom. And therefore, the video footage would be pinned at that certain moment in time. So instead of having to watch 4 hours of video about what happened in the bathroom, administrators would have a closer window of what to check on.
Excellent. Questions, comments?
I just want to say, I think $40,000 is a small amount to pay for that added security, peace of mind, ability to resolve conflict if necessary or when necessary. We are a few years into cameras we had been installed at our middle school a few years back, and they've certainly been far more helpful than any kind of a hindrance. And with that said, we have a few good practices, which I've shared with Beth McCoy, and happy to, be part of that brainstorming session if necessary down the road to think about how to make good use of them without having it be a burden on anyone's time.
Thank you. That sounds great. Any other questions? Okay. Sarah, let me explain something, which is at our meetings, the only people who ask questions are the members of the school committee. I don't mean to be rude or disrespectful at all. I am happy personally to answer any question you have after the meeting, and I am sure that Beth and Dawn and whomever else would be happy to answer your questions, but we have this protocol so that our meetings don't take, say, 6 or 8 hours a night. Is that okay? Thank you. Okay. Other questions, issues, comments, discussion? Okay, I think this is a great idea. Thank you, Beth. All right, good. So now we move on to action items, and we have none. The gods knew that we were going to be doing this by Zoom, and that's why there's no action items, so we don't have to go through that process. So now we move on to consent items, and my question is, it says review of the 2023 town report draft. I didn't see that in the package. Was I just, asleep at the wheel? What's,
Nope. So I know that this is something that a lot of the members on the screen have been working on. And so we have a draft that wasn't able to make it into the last iteration of the packet. So I did email the link out just before the meeting. I also just put the link in the chat box.
okay,
And wherever you land in terms of approving it or making changes, we'll make sure whatever changes, the final version is updated into the packet tomorrow.
okay. So is this the report that Mark was working on?
Yes.
Or, okay. So Mark, does that have to be to the town by Friday?
In fact, I submitted a first version last Friday. That was the ask for date. It sounded like I was early on submissions anyway, so I can update tomorrow with this version.
Do we, and, okay, so, and this is part of the consent agenda, so we have to approve it, correct? So how, do people want to just read what's in this, what's been in the chat? Help me out here. Ideas? Should we do it that way? I mean, it sounds like we could save it to February 6th, and then this Sherborn report would be part of that as well.
We have to get it in from Dover because Kathy sends it to the printer before, like, she sent it to the printer like this week.
All right, so
I don't know if people want to depend on us, but like I've read it and I reviewed it just now and it looks pretty good. It looks good. And I appreciate, like, having done these for many years, how many hours it's taken all of you guys to put it together. And Dawn, thank you, and Beth and all the people.
Yeah, numbers were reviewed, capital pieces were reviewed. So there were pieces that were reviewed, by central office just to make sure there's everything. But it is pretty straightforward year after year. Yeah, we couldn't wait till February 5th because actually last Friday, they usually give us a week or two grace, but I don't think we could push it out to February 5th.
Okay, that's fine. And I think based on Maggie's good advice, which I'd rely on any day, and I've read it as well, and it looks great. Everything that I rely on Dawn for the finance piece, and I read that, it looks good too. So I think if no one has an objection, we can include that in the consent agenda and vote on it. Yes? All right, so may I have a motion to approve the items that are in the consent agenda?
Mark Healy, so moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Colleen Burt, second.
Thank you, Colleen. All right, so now I've got a call on each of you to vote.
Judy, I'm sorry to be a pain. I just have a question. Because the approval of minutes and some grants are in there, do we need to discuss that at all?
Oh, God.
Only if you have, Judy, you should read them off and then people should just say if they have a reason why they have questions or.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. I'm having a technical problem in that I have a prior version.
I know there were several different, I agree. Yeah.
And I think I'm looking at it right now, and I think my prior version, oh, no, that's not it. I think my prior version does, hold on, wait. Here we go. Is it the memo from you dated January 12th?
For me? Oh, the grant approvals? Yes, there's a grant approval memo in there.
Idea SPED 274 grant.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, that is the federal targeted special education improvement. The purpose of the grant is to support schools in the implementation and transition of the new IEP document in the fall of 2024, and the grant is $12,298. Does anyone have questions regarding that grant? Hang on. Okay, then let me go. Thank you, Kate, by the way. The next one is the Comprehensive School Health Services, which is a grant we receive annually and covers nursing operations in all 3 districts. The FY24 additional allocation, the total is $5,000, but the total allocation is now $35,000. Does anyone have any questions with regard to that grant? No. So now, Kate, may we make the motion?
I
Did I
think if you,
correctly?
yeah, include the approval of minutes from December 5th, which you might have already said.
Yeah, I probably didn't, so thank you. All right, so may I have a motion to approve the 2023 Dover Town Report and the minutes of December 5th, 2023 and the grants that I just read?
Mark Healy, so moved.
Thank you, Mark. Do I have a second?
Kate Potter, second.
Thank you, Kate. Now we're going to do a roll call vote. Let's see if we remember how to do it. Mark Healy.
Mark Healy, yes.
Maggie Sharon.
Maggie Sharon, yes.
Angie Johnson.
Angie Johnson, yes.
Colleen Burt.
Colleen Burt, yes.
Kate Potter.
Kate Potter, yes.
Excellent. So it's unanimous. And you see on here the informational items that are always fun to read, the high school newspaper, newsletter, the December and January, and the January middle school newsletter. Are there items, if there are items for the February 6th meeting, do you want to tell me now, or you can also tell me between now and February 6th? Anyone?
I don't have an item per se, but I did notice on the minutes of the meeting from last time, something about a future agenda item about cell phone policy, and I can't for the life of me remember why that is this future agenda item.
There was a parent who had asked, have we considered not allowing cell phones in the schools?
Gotcha. Yeah,
Completely.
I remember. Okay.
Thank you. All right. Anything else? Are we good to go?
No, if I could just say thank you for your patience with the packets. It's not out of an lack of effort, but we had 2 meetings today. We had the Dover meeting and the regional meeting, which means lots of organization for everybody in central office. And we are also trying to get you the meatier things as soon as possible, because obviously it takes time to read the sports manual. It takes time to read the space audit. So thank you for your patience. We plan not to operate that way on a regular basis, but sometimes we're just trying to get things to you so you can start reading and have time to process them. So my apologies.
Thank you, Beth. No need to
Thank you.
apologize. You are always on top of everything. And occasionally, like once, if it happens, it's okay with us. Okay, so then can I have a motion to adjourn? Hello?
Maggie Sharon, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Kate Potter, second.
Do we need to roll call this?
Yes.
Maggie Sharon,
Yes.
Andrew Johnson,
Angie Johnson, yes.
Mark Healy,
Mark Healy, yes.
Colleen Burt,
Colleen Burt, yes.
Kate Potter.
Kate Potter, yes.
Excellent. We are now adjourned. Thank you.